Thanks for joining me today for a post-leg day yoga flow, just to stretch out the lower body. You shouldn't need any equipment, so we'll get started in a nice downward facing dog. So hands to the ground, feet behind us, sort of like in a plank position, and raise your hips to the sky. And here, there's no set stillness, no position that you need to be in. But take some gentle movements, just whatever your body feels like it needs today. Probably already worked really hard. So this is a good opportunity to maybe bend one knee, bend the other, just to get a little bit of a stretch, perhaps through the backs of your legs. And maybe really focus on keeping an even weight distribution between your hands. Drop your head, relax it, lengthening your back as your hips reach towards the sky. And perhaps you find stillness as you take a few breaths in and out, starting to cool yourself down and wind down from what you've just been doing. And on the next inhale, raise your right leg up to the sky, toes dialed down to the ground, keeping your hips even, and the weight evenly through your hands. And then bring your knee forward to a low lunge position. And maybe you're able to lift your hands off the floor. You may want to reach them to the sky if you feel like you've got a bit of that in you, before gently popping your knee on the ground. And maybe sinking, you might want to have your hands on your hips, on the ground, sinking your hips down. And you can have your toes tucked under or the top of your foot on the ground, whatever is more comfortable for you, especially if you're in trainers. This is quite a slow flow, really just getting that stretching in after that hard work. And on your next inhale, bring your hips back into a sort of a half split. Your front leg does not need to be straight. I like to keep a nice bend in it, but what's going to give you that stretch is bringing your toes towards your face, that flexion, and maybe you play around a bit. Bring your toes to the floor and lift them up and see which feels better for you. You've got the option here to keep your chest up, back relatively flat, a little bit more active, or you might want to hinge at the hips and curl your back, letting your head hang. And on an inhale, we're going to roll back forward into your runner's lunge, tucking your back toe, planting your hands, and lifting your hips back to a downward facing dog. Again, you might want to pedal your legs out. You might be feeling a little bit lopsided. You've stretched out one side. And we'll do the same on the other. So on an inhale, raise your left leg up to the sky, dialing your toes down, reaching your foot to the sky. And on an exhale, bring that forward into a low lunge. So you can go straight to dropping your knee, or you might want to raise up tall, maybe you look up to the sky, and then drop your knee and let your hips sink forward, just as far as they'll go. Doesn't have to look like mine, doesn't have to be like it was on the other side. You want to take a few breaths here. Just try and settle in. You might feel, as you have a little bit more time here, you find a bit more space and you can sink your hips a bit lower. Now inhale, and do the same as before. Bring those hips back. Straighten that front leg out. And bring those toes towards the face, to your half splits. Again, the thing that's really important here is bringing your toes to your knees to get that, to your head, to get that stretch. Doesn't matter if your knee is straight or bent. And again, you might want to stay more active and upright, or hinge at the hips and then relax your head, curling your spine down. And on an inhale, we'll come back up to runner's lunge, tuck your back toes under, and back into your downward facing dog. And you might be feeling a little bit more even now, starting to feel your muscles stretch out a little bit. And if you're feeling quite tired, you might want to come onto your hands and knees, come off your wrists a bit. Great time to sit back and stretch the soles of your feet. Or if it's really uncomfortable, just take a seat to have a rest. Stretch out your wrists. Take a bit of movement. Maybe take a bit of a cat-cow here. Or if you're super happy in your downward facing dog, you're welcome to stay there. This next position, I'll invite you to join me in tabletop. And I'm going to start on the left-hand side and just raise your left hand to the sky, stretching, opening out. And then on an exhale, coming through to thread the needle, left hand goes through your right arm. You might want to bring your right hand forward a little bit and bring your ear towards the ground. You might be here. That's totally okay. You might even be able to bring the side of your head down to rest on the ground. Whilst we've worked our lower body today, good to get a stretch across the trunk and the shoulders as well. We're all one body. All the different parts work together. And on an inhale, bring your right hand back towards your head and unravel. You might want to reach up again before coming back into your tabletop. And then we'll do the same on the other side. On an inhale, open up your chest and reaching your right hand up towards the sky. And on an exhale, coming through to thread the needle. And again, you might want to move your hand further forward, just to give you that bit more space. Again, your toes can be tucked or flat to the ground, whatever suits you. But in this twisted pose, hips again are up towards the sky. Depending on what you've done today, you still might be feeling quite active in your legs. On your next inhale, bring your hand back. You've stretched it out. And unravel, reaching towards the sky. And back into your tabletop. Hands roughly underneath your shoulders, knees roughly underneath your hips. And now this next one, you can do it either from downward facing dog or from tabletop. Choice is yours. So here we're going to lift our right leg up. If you're in three-legged dog, exactly the same as it was before. And we're going to bring our knee forward just to sit in front of our right wrist and twist our foot out. So we're coming into pigeon pose. So your right leg is in front of you and bent. Your left leg is extending out behind you. You might want to take a sneaky peek just to make sure that your leg's not going out to the side, but is roughly in line with your hip. And your pigeon might look like this. You might be able to sink all the way to the ground. There's no right or wrong here. It's what your body feels like it can do today. And I think this is a really great stretch because you can feel it in different places in the lower body. Some people feel it more in the glutes. Some people feel it in the hip flexors and hamstrings. Really is a good one to give you what you need on the day. And you might want to stay upright, hands on the ground, helping to just take that weight from your hips. Or if you're feeling super, super comfortable, you might want to bring your chest forward, just slowly, maybe to your forearms. Or even bring your head down to the mat if that's what suits you today. We might do a mixture. Try a few things out. Might be craving that movement. Maybe rock your hips side to side. On your next inhale, maybe come back up if you're lying towards the ground and just roll onto your hips. So onto your right hip, like you've got your bum to the ground now, and bring that left leg forward. So you're sort of in a half box split position or a seated tree position. Your right foot is in towards your groin or your upper thigh, and your left leg is out. It doesn't matter if it's straight in front of you or out to the side, whatever feels right for you right now. We'll just hang out here for a little bit. Sort of get our bearings of how is our body feeling with this today. How's your breathing? You might want to point and flex your foot just to feel the difference. Sometimes the tension we feel in our body is muscular. Very good chance of that if we've done leg day. But it could also be your nervous system. And this is what we call nerve gliding and can really help to release that feeling of tension. And I'll invite you to choose which one feels best for you in stillness, either a flexed foot or a pointed, but keep it a little bit active. You don't want your foot just to be flopping here. And then I'll invite you to raise your hands to the sky. Maybe you look up and you twist towards that outstretched leg. And here you've got an option. If this feels good for you now, you don't really want to do any more, it's feeling quite intense, then you can stop. Or you might want to hinge at the hips and lean forward, down in the direction of those toes. You might be here today. You might choose to curl down and bring your nose to your knee. If you're feeling warm or it's part of your practice. But it doesn't matter what you look like. This stretch is for you. Post-workout, hopefully to find that bit of relief. And on an inhale, invite you to come back up if you're not already, and twist to the center and swap your legs over. So we're going to do the seated tree again on the other side, extending the right leg, bringing your left foot into your upper thigh. Maybe this feels totally different on this side. I know I have a tighter right hip a lot of the time. And so we'll inhale and reach up to the sky and twist to be in line with our right leg. And same options again, but this side of the body might be totally different. Have your hands to the ground, you might want to keep them up. And come forward. Of course, you've got the options to point and flex. Foot, that nerve gliding. And find stillness as you might lean forward a little bit. All the same options again. But really try and keep that foot active, whether that's flexed or pointed. In this transition, back to pigeon on the other side. Might feel a bit weird. If you prefer, go back to tabletop. If you want to have a little yoga for the brain, you might want to twist over. So this right leg is the one that's going to be extended behind. And bring that left knee forward. And find yourself in that pigeon again. Hips relatively level. Your front knee is your left knee. Your foot coming out to the side, bend. You might be here using your arms for a bit of support. You might feel like you have the space to sink your hips lower, closer to the ground. And this front leg does not need to be straight out parallel to the top of the mat. It's just wherever it's comfortable, wherever it feels safe for you today. And again, you might exhale and bring your lower arms, your forearms to the ground, or even your forehead. And just notice where you're feeling this stretch. Is it in the same place as last time? Or is it just totally different to the other side? And if you're lower to the ground, I'll invite you on an inhale. Bring yourself back up. Again, you've got a choice here. You might want to bring yourself back into that downward facing dog, or actually transition to a tabletop. This is your practice for you to do what you feel is right for your body today. And we'll next come into a yogi squat. So you might have a bit more space if you're in downward facing dog, or from tabletop. Step your left foot forward, and then your right. And your toes, maybe if you're on a mat, spilling slightly off the mat, angled at maybe the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock position as you sink your hips down. Maybe your squat looks like this today. Maybe you need a little bit of adjustment, and you can bring your hips down to the ground. I like to use my elbows, my upper arms to push my knees out a little bit, especially in a more passive stretch, and you might want to take some movement. I like to rock onto my toes here. Even take a stretch, a bit of rotation, maybe put my left hand on the ground, lifting up my left heel, looking up to the sky, following my fingers up there. And then the same on the other side. Of course, you can do that without moving onto your toes if you feel like you have the space today. And then we will gracefully, or not gracefully, sit onto the ground, make our way onto our back, and tuck our knees to our chest. And your knees might be here, might be here, they might be apart. It doesn't have to look like what I'm doing. It doesn't have to look like what you did last time. I like to take some gentle movement, massage my lower back. We're going to keep our right knee tucked in and straighten up our left leg up to the sky. Slowly lower it to the ground. And we're going to take a twist. We're going to bring this right knee over to the left-hand side of the mat. And it might stay here and you're supporting it. You might be able to get it to the ground. Sometimes I think shifting my hips to the right can help a little bit. And if you feel like you've got the space, you might want to bring your right arm out. So here my knee is not touching the ground. I don't feel like I've got the space for that today. And that's okay. And on an inhale, invite you to come back onto your back. Bring your knee to your chest and actually out a bit to your right shoulder. And maybe you hold your leg just on the back of your thigh, the back of your calf, or you feel like you've got the space to grab the outside foot and bring your foot facing up. I like to put my other hand on my left hip flexor just to remind myself that wants to be engaging and driving down to the floor. This is your half happy baby. It look like that, might look like this. On an exhale, bring your knees back into your chest. Might want to take a little bit of movement that feels natural to you. Before we do the same on the other side, we can extend our right foot up to the sky and then lower it down, extending it to the ground. And then bringing our left knee over to the right. Maybe shifting your hips as you go to give yourself a little bit of space. You might want to look over to the left, intensify that stretch and that rotation and bring it all the way up your spine. Extending your left arm out. And on an inhale, bring this knee back, rolling onto your back. And we'll take that half happy baby, whichever variation feels right for this side of your body today. I like to use my hand to gently encourage myself to just increase that range of motion. I quite like it when I know my muscles are tight. And when you're ready, with an inhale, bring your knees back to your chest. And I'll invite you to start rolling up the length of your spine. And when you have enough momentum, meet me in a forward fold. And roll up and down. Maybe you can go straight into standing, or maybe you need your hands to help you up a little bit. We'll meet in this forward fold or dangling position. Your knees can be bent or straight, whatever feels right for you right now. Maybe you want something really active, feel your muscles engage as you try and reach your hips to the sky. You might something a little gentler on your body, keeping a bit of a spring in your knees. Just waving, like there's a nice breeze. I invite you to now sort of straighten one leg and bend the other, really get to your hamstrings. I like to plant my weight through my left leg and just bend my right knee slightly. So you'll see that you'll feel your hips might not be so level anymore. You might lift the heel of your right foot. And notice how any sensations you might have might just intensify a bit up your left leg. And on an exhale, back to neutral, both legs roughly the same. And then shift your weight a bit to your right foot and bend that left knee. And inhale, back to neutral. And you've got the option to hang here for a bit longer. Bring your nose to your knees. Or when you're ready, roll yourself up to standing. Just slowly. Stacking each of your vertebrae, one on top of the other. So the last thing that comes up is your head. Namaste.